But I feel like we always have so much room to grow. And I think what it is me moving my goalposts so fast.
Yes.
So I see that there's product market fit, our customers are loving it, but then I'm looking at this and like, well, that can get better, and that can get better, and that can get better. You can also start to work as an industry and start to become more safe.
Yes.
Because everything's a community. And it's not just us, like bringing our competitors in, bringing construction tech together to start changing the way things are done.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Dan Lok Show. As you know, I always want to interview fascinating entrepreneurs and tech founders. And today I have a new friend with me joining us in my studio. If you follow my work, you know that we've been doing a lot of interviews virtually, but it's nice to have someone in the studio, in the office, and actually kind of talk about his journey and what it's like to be a founder, right? So maybe Gabe, share with us a little bit your background and your background in construction, then we'll transition into like how you transition to a tech company. That'll be fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a good question. I get asked a lot, how did you end up in tech coming from construction?
Yes.
And I can tell you that was not the path I was headed down. I didn't even own a laptop 5 years ago. So it's pretty interesting. I'm a grassroots construction guy. I started with a hammer and a shovel in my hand.
Yes.
Actually working in Vancouver on high-rise construction.
Cool.
A local company, Cressy Developments. And I worked my way up from there. Started to become a carpenter apprenticeship, and then I actually started to work with a subcontractor of Cressy, and focused on window installation in high rises.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So talk about high risk.
Yes.
I was also scared of heights.
Wow.
So it was a big transition, and from there I worked my way up in that company over 10 years to a partnership role with them, and running the Western Canadian division. We had about 100 employees, and between Alberta and British Columbia.
At a young age.
At a young age.
Yes.
I was very fortunate. I started working there when I was 22, and the owner had started it 30 years. It took him to get to where he was.
Yes.
And he was amazing. He just let me grow.
So was he kind of like your mentor in some way?
In many ways, absolutely.
Yes,
yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. He taught me a lot and also let me learn, which I think is huge. You got to let people learn. It's not always the micromanagement, and I think that was awesome for my career and allowed me to work through the fear of trying new things and taking like
And then you kind of transition to a leadership position where you're managing a pretty big team of people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I started a little bit into the leadership role when I was about 23 years old.
Wow.
24, and then worked my way up. The last 6 years of that career was running that Western.
But he must see something in you that like, hey, he's a young guy that's ambitious, that's hardworking, right?
Yeah, we met actually on a project for Cressy where they had the company that they were working for, there were some deficiencies, we call it, on site that they had to repair. And I was always staying late and working and helping them, and that's, I guess, I caught his eye.
Yes.
And then from there...
what are some of the key things you've learned from him, like during that period of time, business-wise?
The biggest thing is to not sweat I wouldn't say it's the small stuff, but to prioritize the things that you need to worry about. So I used to, when I was really young, everything that came across my plate had to be done right away, had to be in the trenches, get it done. If somebody that was working with me couldn't do it, I'd go do it myself. And I was literally driving around Vancouver like a chicken with my head cut off, just going from one place to the other. Putting out fires, but also I had trouble transitioning from, like I said, grassroots construction, shovel and a hammer, working physically. Transitioning from working physically to management was hard because I felt like I wasn't working naturally unless I was physically working.
Yes.
And then I learned, probably it took me till my mid-20s to realize, no, if I'm physically working, I'm taking away from that management role and the vision and the ability to clear the path for the workers. And then I had another transition when I started Salus, but that's later down the path.
And did you come up with the idea because you saw an opportunity or something that's a need that's not being fulfilled? Like how did you go from that to that?
Yeah, so like I said, my journey was to take over or be deeper partners in that business.
Yes.
I didn't have an understanding of software, to be honest. Our tech stack, which I learned in the last 5 years what that even meant, was emails, and we got Dropbox the last 2 years that I was working there.
Wow.
We had flip phones 5 years ago, the tough phones, the mic phones, where you could drop it from the 10th floor into concrete and chip it up and it would still work. But yeah, the catalyst for the change was something that happened in the industry. So we see it now more in society. Safety is more at the forefront. It's more present because of COVID and everything else. But 7 years ago was the transition in my world, in construction, where it turned from safety being protective equipment, hard hat, steel-toe boots, to changing to what we call field level compliance, which is actually proving that you have a safety program and process. You have a safety manual that outlines all the safe ways to do your task. And then from there, having to prove that you're doing it by documenting, filling out forms. So that not only does it protect the worker by making them stop and think, but it also protects the business. If something happens in the future.
Liability and
everything.
Yep.
And that was a very difficult transition. So you're talking about an industry where 80% of the industry is field level workers. There is some insecurity there around reading, writing, paperwork. I'm one of those people. And so there's an immediate wall that goes up around, wait, what? We have to do paperwork every day?
I'm busy enough just doing the work, and now I got to have.
And I didn't join the trades to do paperwork. So it started with that culture shock and that shift that we had to do internally to get that adoption and explain the meaning behind it and the reasons we're doing it. We got that. We got there. But the result of that was an administrative nightmare.
I can imagine.
I mean, we're not in an office, right? So we literally had to get people to drive paperwork to site and pick it up.
Wow.
So by the time it comes back to the office, it's 3 weeks later.
So a lot of inefficiency.
Incredible amount.
Okay.
Incredible. And we actually had an incident that happened on a site where somebody almost died.
Oh, wow.
And it was horrible. And there was an investigation, and the investigation showed that there was some paperwork that was missing and some stuff that wasn't done. And I got written up at the top of the company. And at that point, I realized, how can we progress from where we are? Because by the time that paperwork came back, it would have been 3 weeks later.
Wow.
So and if somebody did pass away, I could have gone to jail potentially. We could have lost our home. The company could have gone under. The risk is so high. And at that point, I said, look, there's got to be a better way.
So even insurance doesn't cover that?
Insurance covers it to a degree, but you're still criminally liable if you're, there's a lot of.
So then it sounds to me that it's from a more reactive approach to a preventive approach. But when that happens, there's this gap in inefficiency, right? How do we actually implement this?
The safety ecosystem, the way it is now, is just there's so many balls in the air that people have to manage. And it was becoming so overwhelming with us that it felt like we were drowning. We were treading water 4 feet under. And so I thought, okay, we have smartphones. They're starting to get more and more adopted in the field now. There's got to be a mobile software out there that I can give to our team that I can get real-time information.
Did you do the research and look around? Are there such software that you can buy and like?
So that's where my co-founder Robbie, who's a friend of mine from high school, but I play hockey with him every week. And I knew he was in software, but I didn't really know what he did. And so I found out what he did, and it was just before that incident happened, and then I guess that all kind of triggered my mind to think, hey, maybe there's something we can do here. So I talked to him.
That was 5 years ago?
That was 4 years ago.
4 years ago, okay.
And so I talked to him, and he owned a company that does that stuff. And I said, look, this is what I'm thinking. Can you build an app? Because when you're not in software, everyone has app ideas, right? And so he said, don't get me to build it. There's something out there that'll be a lot cheaper than you building it. And so we looked, and we couldn't find anything. And then that's when the journey started. Saw a bigger opportunity, and then I made the leap of saying, okay, I'm ready to go. And
but what happens to the company that you were working with?
It's fine. I had a conversation with him, and he, there was a very strong second in command to me that was there that took over, and it was a good transition. I took 4 or 5 months to leave as we were developing the software, and then started to jump into it.
Which I acknowledge you for that, because to have something that you've worked so many years, quite a few years, right? Still very young, at the top of your game, and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to get into tech.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's, I still remember the moment that I kind of came to and said, I think I'm going to do this. And I was sitting in my hot tub at my house with my wife who...
What did your wife say when you told her that?
So we just had our son.
Okay, wow.
He was 5 months old.
Ooh.
Not even.
Yes.
And she was on mat leave, and the plan was that she wasn't going to actually go back to work right away and stuff like that. And I said, Rose, I think I'm going to start a tech company and leave
construction.
And I was thinking, like, what are you? She's like, okay.
Oh, wow.
What do I need to do?
That's awesome.
And she's like, do I need to go back to work? I was like, well, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to be able to take a paycheck for a while. And I know we got some savings, but I'm probably going to put a lot into the business. And she's just like, great, I'll start work in, it was, I think, a year to the day of the...
That takes a lot of courage, because in tech, we don't know, especially if you're new, how much money you got to put into it. You think it's going to cost you this much. You know how it is, right?
Yeah.
It costs you that much. You think it's going to take this long, it's going to take three times as long, right?
Yeah.
So what was that first year like?
And I think, to your point, I think part of that, the unknown, is what allowed me to take that risk. If I knew everything, I like hindsight now, like I'd obviously take it, but up front, if I knew the cost, I would have been like, no. So you start climbing the mountain.
Yeah.
And that's...
Then you're like halfway looking down. Well, I'm kind of stuck.
And the conversation, I was always like, well, I'm going to put this much money into it. And if we kind of see some light at the end of the tunnel, we'll keep going.
Yes.
Keep climbing the ladder.
Yes.
And it just never stopped. So the first year was myself and Robbie and my brother actually started to come work with us 4 months into it.
Good. So there's 3 guys.
3 guys.
Yeah. And did you raise any money, or did you just like kind of bootstrap in the beginning?
We bootstrapped it for the first year.
Okay.
And then we started to bring in some convertible notes, some friends, in fact.
Some angels, okay.
Some angels.
And then the first year, did you see any revenue coming in, or was it just developing the product, or was that like?
It was predominantly developing the product for the first 7 months, and then we brought in, I had a lot of industry connections.
Yes, of course, with the connections.
Yeah, so I brought in a couple companies, and the first thing I said to everyone is like, here, 6, like I know you know me as a window installation manager and knew me as somebody that didn't know tech.
Yeah.
So try the product.
Tried it out.
I hired people that know more about tech, don't worry. 6 months, no cost. At the end, if you want to sign up, you can.
Almost like a beta test group.
It's a bit, it was absolutely. And now when I look back at how it was, that the way we rolled it out with the product, the way it was, I think to myself, how did we even get people to use it? Because it was so basic. We didn't even have a web app. We had a mobile app, and that was it.
Okay.
But it's also the timing of the industry. The industry is one of the last frontiers for adopting technology, especially at a field level.
Yes.
So not so much now. Now, I mean, it still is, but there's a lot more traffic there.
What was the pricing model? Like, how did you charge once you, like, is it per company, per user, or like?
Now or how we?
Tell me how it was, and then to
Yeah, so how we did it so we have 2 different pricing models. We have a model where it's by basically active profile in your business.
Okay, it's each profile per worker, right?
Yeah, it's a worker profile. Not everyone has to download the app to have a profile in the system. So think about a new worker that joins the company. They might be working under somebody, but they still need to pull all the information around their profile. So forms they've signed, documents, certificates, everything. So there's active profiles, and then there's a subcontractor portal.
Okay.
And so, as you know, doing renovations and stuff like that, general contractors going to hire subcontractors. Those subs might even have subs.
Yes.
And the thing in the construction industry around safety is that it's not as simple as building a digital form.
Yes.
For safety. That's why I built Salus, is because there's software out there that does that.
Yes.
But nothing that replicated the hierarchies and the workflow of the industry.
It's more construction specific.
It's not just construction specific, it's more field labor industry. So mining, oil and gas, construction, anything where there's a predominant amount of labor, but also the general contractor or prime to subcontractor.
Got it.
And it's interesting because when we first started developing the app, I know it sounds like it was just safety, but we actually started by building something that was different. It was kind of planning to do everything. And what we did is, Robbie was great at this. He said, tell me what you want to build for 10 years from now. We're going to build the infrastructure for that and then focus in. And so we built something, part of the stuff was accidental that's working incredibly well now. But we replicated that workflow that the industry has in the data infrastructure of the product, and then we dropped safety into it.
Got it.
And when we did that, all of a sudden it mapped out their workflows so well that didn't make them take an app that's paper-based, or sorry, a digital form-based app, and all of a sudden have to do all these workarounds to make that work. It just replicated what they were already doing. So the adoption is really high. Because there's so much cross-pollination with paperwork from a prime contractor to a subcontractor to workers to everything. Is
so now it's a win-win for everybody. So everybody's making their job easier, right?
And that's the goal. And when you go into an industry like construction, it's not always about having that hard line of saying, well, this is technology, this is how it has to work. It has to be, there's lenience there where you say, okay, this is your workflow. How can we make your life easier so that you adopt this, we learn, and then pull you into innovation?
Fascinating.
It's kind of like a push and pull.
Did you get traction in the beginning, the first couple of years, or did it take some time? People were skeptical?
I don't know about the skeptic. So there's a couple of different things. People were skeptical, not necessarily of the need for it. The adoption from their field workers. So 5 years ago, like I said, there was a big, heavy presence of flip phones. So how do you get technology in the hands of the field workers?
You need a smartphone, right?
You need a smartphone. Not only that, but they're reluctant to they put up the barriers around or the walls up when they see technology. Like, you put a computer in front of me 5 years ago, I'd be like, that's scary. But smartphones started to break through that wall. And now 99% of the world has smartphones. They don't have to be using it for work. It could be a 65-year-old carpenter FaceTiming their grandkids. But they understand how to use it. So if we can put a mobile solution in their hands that navigates. So the timing
of it is critical.
It
might not have worked if it's earlier, like 5 years, even like 10 years ago, then would not have worked.
10 years ago is tough. We have some competitors that have great products, but they have some walls and barriers in their product because they couldn't start mobile first. And safety has changed so much in the last 7 years. If you build something 10 years ago, the understanding that you would have had of safety is completely different than it is now. So timing is huge as well.
Timing. So then, when did you get it? So walk me through the pricing. How do you charge like companies like today? Let's say
today. So that's more of what we were doing today. Sorry. Previously, it was all over the place. We were charging by like groups. We were charging by project duration. We were charging by it was all over the place. We took some time to figure it out. We of course had some free companies that just are still free because they were incredible for helping us push the product forward.
Is it because of the name, the brand?
The brand of who they are? It was mostly not as much that. It was more people that I knew. It was more of that relationship I had with them. They helped me so much in my previous career, helping me now.
So it's kind of like giving back.
Life is relationships.
Makes sense. Okay. Right. And then the pricing. So the pricing model today. So charging per profile.
Charging per profile, depending, and it scales depending on the size.
What's the average, let's say, annual value per client?
It goes. I mean, for the focus that we have right now, mid-market, it's probably around 6,000. But we have customers that pay over 100,000. Customers that pay. Some of our earlier customers pay under. We actually have a foundation, Salus Foundation, because construction is made up of a lot of smaller companies that don't have the resources. To let alone find safety consultants or safety officers don't have the budget to pay for software. And they get left in the dust. And they're the weakest link always on a job site. So we have an under 10 worker subscription for $500.
Oh, cool.
That's so just to help them out. When they grow into a bigger one.
So it's kind of like a built-in customer base in the future.
Exactly. And help the industry, give back to the industry.
And then during the 5 years of like when you're growing, building it, when did you feel like, okay, now we've got something. Like this is like the first year probably didn't make much money, right? The first year was very difficult. And then like when did you feel like, I think we got something here?
I feel it's an interesting question for me. I don't know if all founders feel this way, but I feel like I've always felt like we had something, but I also feel like we don't have it yet.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
You feel like the market is there, but I don't know if the product is quite...
No, I feel like that's there, but I feel like we always have so much room to grow. And I think what it is me moving my goalposts so fast.
Yes.
So I see that there's product market fit, our customers are loving it, but then I'm looking at this and like, well, that can get better, and that can get better, and that can get better. And if we don't do this, then... And so I'm always playing the game of, I personally feel like I should probably focus a bit more on some of the positivity and look back at what we've created more.
Yes.
And I encourage our team to do that.
Yes.
But how often do I do that? I probably need to get better.
Yes.
Because I'm always focused on
what's next.
Where are we weak? Where can we improve?
Yes.
And so I find I get trapped in that sometimes.
Yes. We don't take the time to kind of celebrate and smell the roses a bit, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a double-edged sword. The biggest thing that drives you forward also causes you turmoil.
Yes. And then did you raise another round, like as you go on? Did you get into rounds of funding?
So we did some convertible notes, and then the 2.5-year mark.
Yes.
3-year mark, 2.5. We raised a seed round.
Seed round. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, some seed round. And then based on what's the valuation back then?
Valuation back then was 15 million post.
Okay, cool. Yeah, cool. Okay, and now you're in the new office, expanding the team. When the pandemic hit, did it affect the business? What was that like? Yeah,
that was interesting because it was right after we did our last convertible note round, and we had money in the bank.
Yes.
But as you know, in tech, you're always growing. It's when you're going to growth, and we hit the pandemic.
Yes.
And right away, everything went dead for sales.
Wow.
Within, and I'm sure so many people can say that, right?
Yeah.
We're not in the restaurant industry. We're okay compared to what they experienced. But it was we had a decision to make. We talked internally, like, okay, we have some money to ride this out. 5 months from now, it should be done.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We thought. Yeah.
We thought.
Yeah, exactly.
Worst case, 5 months.
Yeah, exactly. But then we also said, look, this is something that our industry is struggling with.
Yes.
They weren't stopping, but all these restrictions are piling in. But they also don't know the future, and it's uncertain, and they don't know if they're going to survive this.
Yes.
So we said, let's give our product out at no cost.
Smart.
No strings attached.
Smart. I love that.
And
I love that.
When we feel like the pandemic is in better control or starting to go in a better trend, we'll give you a month's notice and you decide if you want to sign up.
Yes.
And we got an incredible amount of traction.
Yes.
And we got...
Is it also because when things dies down, there's more time to, I didn't have time to do this stuff before, now, okay,
I would say that it wasn't that the industry was slowing down, because construction didn't stop.
Yes.
It was more that they were really concerned. The reason the phone calls stopped is because they didn't know if they were going to make it financially, because they thought contracts would get pulled. This is going to shut down.
Yes.
So they were still incredibly busy, but they had this new burden.
Yes.
How do I start implementing safety and figuring out COVID self-assessments and all this other stuff?
Super smart though, but so you give the products away. I think also that builds a lot of goodwill in the marketplace, right? It's during uncertain times.
Of course.
And then of course later on did you see a big percentage of the people when you say, hey, now we're gonna go from free to paid? Did you see the uptick rate? Was it good?
It was pretty good. I mean, we did a good qualification process.
Okay.
It was to make sure it's the right fit, and they weren't just wasting their time with it for both our sakes. Yes. We actually took our entire sales team and turned them into customer success managers during that time.
I love that. Great.
And it was great because they learned way more about the product.
Yeah.
And then when they became sales again, they were so much stronger.
Yeah. It's a consultative kind of sales anyway.
100%. And we take that approach regardless.
Yeah.
Sandler approach.
Yeah, Sandler, yes.
Yeah. And so, it was exciting. We had a good conversion. I think it was about 60% conversion from that. And a record sales month.
Yes. And your product is highly sticky anyway.
Very sticky.
Once they use it, they're not going to say, we're going to stop using it. We don't care about safety anymore. It's not going to happen.
If you start using it, they stick with it. The only risk you have, especially at the early times, is the field going to adopt it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And is there safety officers that are running with it and pushing it out. And we've since built our customer success and support team out to facilitate and enable. And I mean, before that, it was my brother, and that's it, running all of support.
Yes.
And
how big is your team now?
We have 31 employees now.
Cool. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, so.
And then so now the pandemic, what's going on? Do you have customers on like just in Vancouver, or is it over North America?
That's where we started.
Okay.
It was Vancouver. Now we're North America wide and into Australia as well.
Oh wow.
Not our focus was Canada up until June, and then we started focusing into the US.
Yes.
We haven't actually focused in Australia yet. They've just been coming inbound.
Got it.
Because they're in the global spectrum of safety. Australia and the UK are kind of leading the charge.
Yes.
Canada behind, and the US is a little bit behind us.
Yes.
But coming fast. It's just all changing.
And when you are expanding to US, do you see any differences? Like how do you tap into that market?
It is a bit different. I find that the mindset around safety is the same. It's just where you are in that process. Even in Canada, you can go from British Columbia to Alberta to Ontario to.
Yeah, exactly.
It's different levels of adopting the mindset. They're all going the same way.
Yes.
But it's just, they're 1 year behind or they're 2 years ahead.
Yes.
Like Alberta's farther ahead, in my opinion, than most provinces.
Yes.
In the implementation aspect.
Yes.
We have companies that are pool repair companies that are core certified, which is like basically a stamp of approval, like a Nexus card, that are using our platform, and they have 8 employees. Right?
Yes.
Whereas if you go in British Columbia, you probably wouldn't find those companies at that level yet. And the same in the US. The US is just a little farther behind in certain regards and it goes state by state too, industry by industry. But it's exciting time, especially working with people like Amandeep and stuff, bringing her from the construction safety community as a thought leader.
Yes.
It's huge. It's huge that we have platforms for thought leadership and stuff like that.
And Gabe, what advice would you have like for entrepreneurs, maybe a tech entrepreneurs or any founders, right? Through your journey, what are some of the key lessons that you could share with my audience? Like looking back, hey, I would have done that differently, or I would not have done that at all. Like, what are some of the key lessons?
I think that there's a lot. I mean, you can always look back and do things different. You can look back and say, if I knew what I knew now, I could do this so much better. But I think at the end of the day, so much you have to experience for yourself to learn. You can have advisors, and they're incredibly important and valuable.
Yes.
But you do have to experience. And in order to experience, you have to start the journey.
Yeah.
So the mountain you create in your mind is always going to be bigger than if you just start. When I first started in high-rise construction, I looked up at a high-rise and I said, how do they do this? If I ever know how this goes together, I feel like I'm at the top of the world. Yeah. And within 2 years, I knew how that worked, and it wasn't intimidating. Yes. And I could walk into any high-rise construction site and understand the entire workings of it. And so that's the same mindset that I took with software. I had no idea what I was doing in software. I knew how to run a company.
Yes. Manage people. Yes.
Hindsight, I didn't at the level that I do now.
Yes.
Because of my advisors and the processes, and my other co-founder, we haven't talked about, Scott Switzer, who comes from 22 years of software SaaS experience, scaling sales processes and stuff like that. Cool. When I first started selling, it was burger and a beer. And I was like, what is predictable revenue?
What is your sales process? A burger and a beer, that's my sales process.
Burger and a beer. I'd fly to Alberta and be like, so do you want it? Here, I'll show you over lunch. And we got Salesforce, and I was like, I didn't know how to use it.
What's a CRM? Just like
what's
paper?
a CRM? I don't know what that means. And predictable revenue. You mean revenue can be predictable? So going from 8 people that I had to sell to in construction to thousands and thousands and it's so incredibly powerful, that infrastructure and the predictability and the interworkings between marketing and sales. And it's incredible. But you just got to start going through it and bringing in the power of the people that are around you and enable them to do what they do best and soak it in and soak it in.
And do you feel that for when you're going from like a team of 5 and 10 and 20 and 30, were you comfortable like as you're growing that? Or it's like, now I have, because this is a tech company, it's different from construction, right?
I think in that respect, just based on my previous experience, I'm very comfortable with large companies or larger. I mean, it's all relative. But the one thing I would say that we focused on, the one thing I wanted to do in this company that was different than the last is I felt like I was always drowning in the last one. I was getting 150 phone calls by 12. I was getting 100 emails and it was all
just putting on fire.
Emergencies, even at the top. Yeah. And I said, this isn't the right way to do it. I'm not getting the best out of myself and pushing the company to the level it can be if I am. Do I have the time?
Yes.
So I wanted to put that infrastructure in where I would slowly be working myself out of all these positions, but not only that, same mindset for all the leaders, like involvement, but enable your people below you to empower themselves, to push you up and elevate, and it just keeps pushing the company.
Yes.
And to do that, we had to focus, and myself, Robbie, and Scott are hyper-focused on culture. Hyper-focused.
Yes.
And you have to do that at a very young age. And if you do that at a very young age, I find it just starts... It's all a game of telephone at the end of the day, and because my vision and my conversation is always going to get diluted a little bit as you get down more, unless we get to 500 one day, I can't be talking to everyone every day.
Of course.
So we have to instill that in the leaders, and then it takes, that culture can be strong, and you don't feel it as much. And also the infrastructure. Before this is our year of, we just got our seed funding and we said, instead of focusing on scaling our sales, let's take a few steps back, focus on infrastructure.
Beautiful, yeah.
Tech, get the right software at the right time, enable our teams for success, and then start scaling.
Slow down to go fast, right?
To speed up, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. And then would you say, so you're the CEO and then Robbie is the CTO?
Yeah.
Okay, and then Scott is kind of the COO. Got it. And Scott is the sales and marketing person, right?
He comes from sales and marketing, but I would say that would short sell what he can do. He is so in tune with process.
Wow. So he's good with marketing, sales, plus good with operation.
Huge with operation.
That's very rare.
We wouldn't have been able to raise a seed round, in my opinion, without the processes that he put in place for that infrastructure. Yes. And he's data driven. Salesforce is dialed in with Marketo, and it's incredible. The dashboards and just that you need that, right?
Yes. Are you thinking of raising the next round? Where do you see the projection?
Yeah, we're going to raise another round. We don't need to raise one now. Could we? Yes. But I feel like from construction, one of the things I had to get used to is growth to basically not off profitability.
Yes.
Going to the next.
Yes.
And there's also valuations out there that you can get that, in my opinion, can be too high. So I want to forget about that for a second and focus on our
smart thing to do.
Company.
Yeah.
What do we need to prove out right now? Yeah. There's certain aspects that we need to prove out to make sure that when we bring that money in, that money is working immediately. And it's not as much guesswork. The seed, we know we had a lot of stuff to learn. We didn't have our marketing proven out. Shannon wasn't a part, our VP wasn't a part of it yet. We didn't have an inbound process. It was all outbound.
Wow.
We had no inbound.
What percentage of your leads now coming from inbound?
Well, Shannon just started in August, so the engine is just starting to work. But it's probably a 20-80 split, 20% inbound, 20% inbound.
Yeah, that's already good.
But the market is there to be much, much more. And so we just got to tap into it. And it's starting to happen. It's.
Are you starting to see people are talking about your brand and you're referring?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, we're seeing that more and more. Yeah, more and more. I mean, that grows with, the more customers you get, and we're just starting to become thought leaders. There's such an opportunity for thought leadership in that space as well.
Yes. Which I think is a very smart thing. You notice a lot of SaaS companies, when we combine education with the SaaS, it's a very powerful thing. And 100%. That's why I know you're creating content and things like that. Because then you're not just selling the software, you're educating people on a problem that when they understand, hey, there's a problem. By the way, I have a software that solves that problem. Okay, it's a logical sell, 100%.
Right? And then take that and show how you can solve the problem with the software. Because the software is only as good as you use it.
Exactly.
And so, there's just so much room to create a world that people want to live in.
Yes.
So they're not just buying your software
Yes.
where they feel like it's more. So
Yes.
when a competitor comes knocking at the door, which they do probably every day,
Yep.
they feel like they're a part of something.
Yes, the community.
A community.
Community, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And then one of the things I talked about I teaching to entrepreneurs is when you have a community, it's very difficult to knock that off.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
it's about the connections, right?
Yes.
It's a network effect.
100%.
Right? They can copy your product, your code, whatever it might be, but
Yeah.
they
Create
can
the moat.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
knock off the community. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So then, where do you see the company going in, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
5 to 10 years, that's a good
Yes.
question. I think that we have an incredible opportunity to transform an industry, not just by, so we have a best of breed product.
Yes.
And we're breaking into the world of construction with that product
Yes.
and at the forefront of digital adoption in that industry.
Yes.
So still when you go onto a job site, I'd say maybe 60% of the trades don't have a digital software,
Yes.
mobile app. But so there's that aspect.
Yes.
But there's also the aspect of once you start collecting that data and start connecting people, because our software is different. There's actually, people are fitting into a puzzle. It's creating a network effect within itself, because like I said, we replicated the workflows. You can actually start to change, not just at a company level where they're stopped being reactive and more proactive with the data that they're collecting.
Yes.
But you can also start to work as an industry and start to become more safe.
Yes.
Because everything's a community. And it's not just us, like bringing our competitors in, bringing construction tech together to start changing the way things are done.
Wow.
As an example, I was in window installation.
Yes.
There's a window that fell off a high-rise here multiple times in my career, but one in particular that fell in the middle of Georgia Street. And nobody got injured, but it was, I don't know how. You know Georgia Street.
Yes. Yes.
And to this day, I don't actually know what happened and why it happened. In my own industry, in the trade that or in the city that we were in. Now, yes, is it my fault? Sure, I could have gone to work safe and probably they had something there, but
Yes.
people don't do that. So a world that we'd love to create is where there's more of a community aspect, where a window like that falls, and you don't demonize companies. You just release the reason it happened and how it was prevented in the future. So all of a sudden, across the world or across a country, all of the window installation companies know immediately this happened. It's not what happened with drywall or concrete. It's my world.
Yes.
Because we're repeating the same incident over and over and over again across the world.
Yes.
Airline industry doesn't do that. Airline industry collaborates.
Yes.
Competition is pushed aside.
Yes.
Right.
It's for the safety for the passengers. Everybody
Exactly.
else, yeah.
Exactly. But they have an easier way
share
to
the data,
collaborate.
right?
Yeah,
They
they
share
share
the
the
insights.
data, right? And so we can do that.
Yeah.
We can do that. And I truly believe it's not a world of us versus our competitors. It's us coming together. The market is massive.
Massive, massive.
And we have to do this as a marketplace, as a network effect working together.
Cool, cool. Do you see other innovative companies in the industry that's, hey, they're doing some pretty cool stuff that you think you can collaborate in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're already in conversation with Procore. I love what Procore did, the way that they approached the market, the way that they created that community.
Yes.
They're also great to collaborate with. As far as working together in integration.
Yes.
I think that the construction industry as a whole is new to technology and the mindset behind how do we use it.
Yes.
So they might have Procore and an accounting software, and a lot of the natural mindset is I want to find an all-in-one solution.
Yeah.
Right, but that's going back to the world of like SAP and stuff like that.
Which
but
now it's always
it doesn't.
No, it's API. It's connected with different things together.
And focus on what you do best.
Yeah.
So what I always say to them is I say, okay, let's think construction.
Yeah.
Would you hire somebody that was a drywaller, a carpenter, a plumber, and an electrician?
Yes.
You couldn't. Would you like to? Yes.
Yes.
But you can't.
Yes.
Because you hire a plumber or even
who specializes,
but who work best together on a site.
Yes.
And so the world that we need to push forward is exposed, and not just exposed APIs, because the world of integration is messy and it needs to get better. But there's a way to do that more efficiently.
Yes.
And the world is going that way. But I think that's how the construction industry needs to move together.
Cool.
Is best of breed products that have incredible APIs, or even a world that they can all integrate into to make things more
I could also
efficient.
see, like, because I talk to so many founders, we fund different investments. Your personality, I can see why you do so well. Because I guess, first of all, you got I like the three founders, right? One is a visionary, one is a tech, and one is marketing and sales. That's maybe through connections, maybe even luck, but three is like a great number, right? And second, like from the conversation, like sometimes when I hear founders, when they pitch me and when they talk about the money so much, when I'm going to raise the next round, how am I going to drive valuation? I don't invest in those companies.
Yeah.
Right? And when I hear you talk about the product, you talk about really building an ecosystem, right? That's all of that. It's bang on. So it's awesome. So I think you do very, very well. I think you do very well. The company, I could see it by the time you go to the next round when the valuation would be higher.
Yeah.
And the sky's the limit.
Yes.
Right?
It is.
You build the ecosystem.
Yeah.
I mean, construction is huge. Forget U.S., just Canada is huge.
Oh, just Canada.
Just Canada alone,
It's
massive.
It's massive,
right?
yeah.
And I don't think anyone, once you are established, because you're still early, right?
Very
you're still early.
yeah.
So
we're coming up on 3 years of sales in
Yeah,
October.
no one could easily come in and say, "Hey, I saw what Gabe is doing. Let me try that."
Yeah.
It's because of years of connections, experience, and everything leads to that.
And it's not just that. Our software, when you dig into it, what Robbie created is absolutely incredible. It's not, it's second to none. It's crazy.
Cool. So 5-10 years building the ecosystem, really transforming in industry, right?
Yeah, and there's just so much opportunity from there. I mean, there's so much to do in this space and other spaces. I love when you learn, you just open up so many doors.
Yes.
Right. I've learned so much now that I'm like, wow, look at like whatever happens with Salus, there's so much in the world to do.
Yes.
So
and are you planning to create more content for the company? Like what's your plan in terms of like content creation as a CEO then, I guess, right?
That's I have to lean on Shannon for that one, but we have a lot of exciting stuff. So one of the things that we've started to do more of is that the marketing blitz. It's not just it's the whole new Salus since Shannon's come on. It's been new website, new brand, and starting to get this content out there. And we want to be different because we are different. The way that we sell, the way that we talk. We truly always want to be a product from the industry for the industry.
Yes.
And even in our hiring processes, you can't hire all construction workers because we wouldn't have the best product.
Yes. You wouldn't. They can't code. I mean,
why isn't this working?
Why is the computer working? Where do you turn on the computer?
Yeah. My team always jokes at me when I'm struggling with something. Hey, Gabe, maybe the hammer will help.
Where's the drill?
Yeah, where's the drill? I keep telling him I'll bring him on a job site one day and see who's laughing.
Yeah, that's true.
So we want to be authentic, and in our hiring process, we still bring in construction.
Yes.
We try and make sure that's a 30-70 split.
Okay.
Like Amandeep, who comes from grassroots construction as well.
The good pulse of what's working
and
what's needed.
And they start leading these conversations internally.
Love it.
So that when our sales team is talking and everything else, it's as much as you can to connect with the customer.
Yes.
And our product. Our product needs to be, it's very easy because software developers and construction couldn't be more farther apart in the way that they think.
Yes.
Right? So the way that a software developer looks at something and a construction worker on one screen could be completely different languages saying the same thing.
Yes.
And so we need that bridge of saying, love what you're doing in the text on the dev side, but let's do this and this because they won't understand what that means or how that works or whatever it is.
Yes.
And we found, do we have a lot of work? We got a lot of work to do still. Tons. That's part of the most exciting part.
Yes.
Is that we are nowhere near done what we're doing.
Yes.
And we still have to tweak. The biggest thing, and like, have we made mistakes? We made lots of mistakes.
Yes.
But mistakes can either pull you back and you can put the tunnel vision on and never learn from them and repeat them and dwell in them. Or you can have them happen, learn from them, and actually push your company farther, faster than if they never happened.
Yes.
And that's what it's painful.
I'm also curious.
Incredibly
now, looking
painful.
back, your wife Rose, right?
Yes.
What does she think of all this now?
I mean, my wife for starters is a superhero. She is not like you have all the Marvel stuff. She's a character out of there. My wife She, for starters, always says it's incredible how well you're doing. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean we're doing well? I was like, this is happening. We got to go better here. Yeah. But she is just unbelievable. We are such an incredible team. She is actually a project manager in the construction industry as well.
Nice. Wow. Is that how you guys met?
We did. We met on the Cressy job site. She also is an actor.
Oh, wow.
She also just wrote her own film and just filmed it 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
With the film crew and everything. And cool. So together, it's just like, I'm down, she'll pump me up. She's down, I'll pump her up.
Yes.
She's I wouldn't be able to do this without her because she's just a rock.
So she always believes in you and knew that, hey, you could do this.
Even when we first started, again, I don't know sales, so cold calling for me with no training was terrible. Just terrible.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and
a beer doesn't work.
And so I'd be sitting on the couch some days. It's like 12 o'clock, and she'd come home from work, and I'd just be sitting there, and she could tell I'm just in a rut. Like I haven't closed even a demo in the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
And she's like, well, sitting on the couch isn't going to do anything. Get off your ass and go. And of course, it turns into an argument because how, what are you talking about? You don't know what. And then the next day, I'm on the phones and I'm calling people.
That's awesome.
So it's
awesome.
It's good.
Beautiful. For my audience, because we have millions and millions of downloads for the show. If they want to get in touch with you or follow you on social media or even collaboration opportunities, or they may be from construction industry as well. So what's the best way to get in touch with your company and to follow you on social media?
Yeah, to follow me on social media. This is stuff I'm new at, so you guys might have to yell out how to follow me on social media. I am on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Gabriel Guetta.
Yes.
We'll
put a link on the
page. Okay, good.
We'll do that.
I have Instagram and Twitter. I'm not active yet. This is again a project of our VP of Marketing, Shannon, who is going to get me more entrenched in this.
Yes.
And we have a website.
By the way, for interview, you did incredibly good, just so you know.
Thank you.
You did very good.
This is still new to me, but again, just try it. Get out there, do it.
Yes.
But I would love talking to people. So if anyone does want to collaborate, if they're an entrepreneur, I love to give my perspective. And talk about it. Everyone finds their own way of doing things. It's not always just, my advisor told me this way, it was successful for them. I have to do it that way. So that's why I find it's good to talk to many people. Some things people might not agree with the way I did it, or vice versa. So, but it's fun. Website, email, all of that type of stuff. I'm not on Instagram really, but yeah.
You will soon, maybe.
I will be soon.
You will soon, maybe. What is...
Have to follow your lead a little bit.
Thank you. What's one, last question, what's one quote that's impacted your life?
Ooh, one quote. I don't know if I have a quote
that's meaningful, maybe from somebody or from a book, or from a mentor, anyone.
Let me think about that.
Take a time. Or maybe from Scott, from Robbie.
I'm not the best with quotes and stuff like that, but I think the biggest thing that one of my advisors has told me recently is to try and be in the moment more, to try and really, I find my mind is always racing, and I'm always 2 years ahead, 5 months ahead, thinking about the past or things that haven't happened. And you can dwell on those things that are moving around you so fast, and you have to try and stop, be in the moment,
be present. Yes.
Not only that, I find that it's also not just work. Work is what people love to talk about.
Yes.
Work is what gets people excited because it drives people in so many ways. But to me, it's family. One of my biggest fears of starting a business was you always hear about people that are incredibly successful, but they look back at their life and they don't know their kids, they don't know their family and stuff like that. And a big fear was that I'm going to fall into that because my dad was not like that. He owned his own business, but he had no employees. He coached all my sports, and he was always present.
He's always there for you.
And my mom.
Yeah.
And my personality is to keep pushing the limits and pushing the limits and pushing the limits. But at the same time, that puts a can put a lot of strain on, am I going to be there?
Yeah.
And so for me, it was be present wasn't necessarily always work. Work is, that's very valuable. But for me, it was more around my children. Because when you're at home, you only have one chance with them. Business, you have as many chances as you want.
Yes.
With my kids, I have my daughter who's 1.5 years and my son who's 4.5.
Yes.
And those moments that you miss, you'll never get back. And when you're with them, if you're on your phone and you're worried about work and you're doing all this other stuff, you're not present in the moment with them. And that to me is incredibly valuable.
And that's great piece of advice for entrepreneurs, for any entrepreneurs. For any entrepreneurs.
That's the core. That's what life, to me, family. Not if you don't have kids, whatever, but there's more to the world than just
success,
work. And success, I would say, is there's many different levels of success.
Definitions of it too.
Definitions of it, right?
For sure. Awesome. Well, Gabe, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for being here. Make sure you go check out his Instagram once he has it. Connect with him on LinkedIn and also check out his website as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Are rising ad costs slowly killing your business? What if there's a way for you to leverage the power of social media and grow your business without relying on pay ads? What if there's a way to scale your personal brand and multiply your profits without sacrificing your soul? This is Dan Lok. With over 8 million followers on social media, for the first time ever, I'm going to teach you how I have built a business empire using the SMART method. Click the link below to join us for the upcoming SMART Challenge.